I've moved out, so your house is gone. It must be tough without a place to call home. But hang in there, my mother-in-law cheerfully announced over the phone. I responded with a disinterested, Enjoy your life in your new home, she continued. Yes, thank you, and please never come back to my house. After all, you'll be getting a divorce. With that, my mother-in-law hung up. I stood still at the airport for a moment. What welled up within me wasn't anger, but joy. Yes! I clenched my fist in a small victory gesture and set off for home with a spring in my step. My name is Emma. My husband, David, was assigned to work abroad immediately after our marriage, forcing us into a short period of living apart. Despite the distance following our immediate marriage, David and I had been dating for 5 years before tying the knot and had also lived together. Our long-term relationship and cohabitation had built a strong bond of trust between us. I didn't worry about David being unfaithful, and instead, I hoped that he would remain healthy while overseas. Our days should have continued in this calm, yet sometimes lonely state. But the problem arose when my mother-in-law decided to move into our house. My mother-in-law, married since David was a child, is now single. Upon learning that David was being assigned overseas, she declared, I'll keep my eye on you, Emma, to make sure you don't cheat. She began living in our house without our consent. Apparently, she was cheated on and subsequently abandoned by my father-in-law, whose whereabouts are unknown. To prevent David from experiencing the same thing, she decided to monitor me, but the constant surveillance made life unbearable. Desperate, I turned to David for help. He repeatedly urged his mother to leave, but she refused to listen. David trusts you too much, Emma. I can tell. A woman like you will definitely cheat. She accused baselessly, giving me a headache every day. Regardless of what I did, she linked it to infidelity. My mother-in-law wouldn't even prepare dinner for me. She would cook for herself using food from the fridge, but never left any for me. Moreover, she didn't go grocery shopping herself. She used the ingredients that I had bought for my cooking, leaving me at a loss when I came home and found that the groceries I thought were in the fridge were gone. Of course, I complained about this, but my mother-in-law either didn't care or didn't listen. I suppose you ate dinner out with your boyfriend since you're cheating, she would say, irritating me beyond belief. Even when I came home late from work and started cooking, she would create a commotion, accusing, you must be cheating if you come home at this hour, leaving your mother-in-law alone. During my work's busy period, when I was often coming home late, she constantly made a fuss about me cheating. I was so stressed that I even felt sick. I'm begging you, please leave. I'm not cheating. I truly love David. I told her. David, too busy to come back to the U.S., tried his best to persuade his mother. Still, her response was disheartening. So you want me to leave that badly? You must be cheating after all. I could only sigh at this point. On a day off, I went out to meet a friend and was once again accused of cheating by my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law seemed determined to catch my infidelity and began a clumsy attempt to tail me from behind. She hid behind lampposts and behind our home's brick wall, busily skulking about. I chose to ignore her antics. I met up with a friend at a cafe, grumbling in a low voice so my mother-in-law wouldn't hear. Suddenly, a flash of light blinked a few times. It was her, taking pictures of me. My friend, looking suspicious, asked, "What's that, a stalker?" My friend Abby has been a close friend since our student days. Abby, a tough woman, began to stand up saying, "Should I tell her off?" But I quickly persuaded her to sit. No, please sit down. Abby, sporting a pixie cut in street-style fashion, looked androgynous. I mentioned that my mother-in-law might have mistaken her for a man, which caused Abby to double over in laughter. Enjoying the spectacle, Abby leaned closer to me, held my hand as a joke to provoke my mother-in-law. Each time, my mother-in-law flashed her camera, capturing every moment. When I checked in the mirror, she seemed thrilled, snapping photos of us while her nostrils flared with excitement. I found myself laughing at the absurdity of the situation. Having witnessed my mother-in-law's silly antics, I managed to let off some steam and went on to do a little shopping with Abby before we parted ways. Sure enough, my mother-in-law followed me home, hiding behind lampposts and brick walls just like before. Every so often, I'd quickly run around like playing a game of red light, green light, and she'd scamper off to hide. It was amusing, and I found myself playing along with her ridiculous game. I thought how foolish she must be to believe that I didn't notice her tailing me. Once I arrived home and started to take off my shoes, my mother-in-law quickly rushed in. If she was tailing me, she could have at least delayed her return home. I was taken aback when she excitedly showed me a disposable camera. "Emma, I finally got proof of your infidelity. I'm going to send all of these to David, so be prepared." "Oh, really? Good luck with that." She didn't like my nonchalant response and spent the rest of the time buzzing around me like a nagging child. "Are you okay with this? It's proof of infidelity. Your face and his are both clear in the photos." But I calmly kept responding, "That's fine." While it was unfortunate that Abby's androgynous look got her mistaken for a man, David had met Abby several times before we got married. Even if she sends a photo of me and Abby as proof of infidelity, David will likely recognize her as just a friend. As I endured my mother-in-law's ridiculous and childish schemes, I suddenly had to go on a business trip overseas. It was a shame that I wouldn't be able to meet David because it was in a different country, but it couldn't be helped. I informed my mother-in-law, who I live with, about my business trip, although I didn't ask for her input. In her mind, it seemed to translate into a romantic getaway. While I was preparing for my business trip, my mother-in-law smirked and said, "It'll be a big problem if you come back pregnant from your romantic getaway. David hasn't seen you in a while, so it won't be easy to pretend that the baby is his." Her distasteful imagination made it pointless to argue back. I responded nonchalantly, "Yes, indeed, but it's a business trip, not a romantic getaway," and I left for my trip. My business trip was busy and hectic, and the days flew by in a whirl. When I finally returned to the U.S., I was exhausted. My boss, who had also joined the trip, seemed worn out as well and left for home. I had planned to buy some duty-free sweets before going home, so I took a break on a bench. At that moment, my phone rang. It was a call from Abby, and she told me something surprising. Emma, welcome back. There's something I need to tell you. Your mom came to the company our family runs." "What?" The company run by Abby's family isn't the type that ordinary people visit. When I learned that my mother-in-law had gone there, I felt my blood boiling. Abby told me how she handled my mother-in-law and asked me if she went overboard. I replied no, I think it was just right. After laughing and ending the call with Abby, it was just about time to leave when I got another call from my mother-in-law. "Emma, you should be back from your trip now. Did you enjoy your affair trip?" It wasn't an affair trip, and I didn't particularly enjoy it because I went there for work. "Well, I've already sent David the evidence photos." I simply responded with, "I see," to my mother-in-law, who seemed pleased with herself. Ignoring my indifference, she just kept on talking. "Actually, I moved, so your house is no longer there. I sold the old house, so you must be struggling without a place to go back to, but hang in there." I gave an uninterested "huh" to my mother-in-law, who happily laughed as she said this. "Enjoy your life in your new house." "Thank you, and please never come back to our house. After all, you're going to be divorced soon." I stood in the airport for a while after my mother-in-law hung up. What gradually filled my heart was not anger, but joy. I did it! I made a little fist pump and started my journey home with a light step. Of course, I was returning to the house my mother-in-law said she had sold. The furniture was probably taken out by my mother-in-law. Although a lot of things were gone, I accepted it as a severance fee. I immediately called the locksmith to replace the front door lock so that my mother-in-law could not get in even if she returned. Then, I laid down in the living room, comfortably, celebrating the freedom I had finally attained. I made another fist pump inside the house, shouting, "I did it!" The next day, I got a call from my mother-in-law. "What's wrong?" I asked her maliciously, as she spoke in a flustered manner. She was trembling as she said, "Actually, I thought I sold the house, but it turns out I didn't. It seems I borrowed money without realizing it. Debt collectors are coming and it's really scary." That must be terrifying, because the company she unknowingly visited, thinking it was Abby's parents, was on the surface a real estate company. But its hidden side was a loan sharking business. According to Abby, they had told her repeatedly that the house couldn't be sold. The house was in David's name, so she couldn't just sell it on her own. Having been turned down by all the real estate agencies she went to, she ended up at the company Abby's parents ran. To her desperate plea to sell the house, they gave her a promissory note for a large amount of debt to sign. But she thought she was selling the house and signed it without reading the content. The document seemed to obligate her to repay $1,000 every day. She managed to pay off the debt collectors for today, but she doesn't have the means to prepare $1,000 every day from tomorrow on, so she came crying to me. "Please, Emma, you have to help me. The debt collectors are pounding at my door from dawn. It's terrifying. I can't sleep well, and I don't have much money. I used the money I borrowed to buy a new house, so I don't even have any savings left. I know what. Please, transfer $10,000 to my account every week until I've paid off the debt." Do you think there will ever come a day when you can pay off the company's debt? I don't think it will. Even if you combine my income with David's, it's impossible to transfer $10,000 every week. I'm sorry, but your only choice is to work hard and earn it yourself. What? As if there's a day job out there where I can earn $1,000 every day. Well, why don't you try talking to the company you borrowed money from? They might be able to introduce you to a good job. I meant it as a joke. But my confused mother-in-law said, "Really? Then I'll go and see." And she hung up the phone. I thought to myself, oh dear. There was no stopping my mother-in-law now. I heard from Abby later that my mother-in-law suddenly showed up at the company and said, "I have no choice but to work because I have no money. Is there a simple and easy job where I can earn more than $1,000 a day?" Abby and her team did find my mother-in-law a job, a company where many people sleep in dilapidated shacks that serve as employee dormitories. In that company, they work tirelessly day and night, doing quite a bit of physical labor. Even elderly people are made to work relentlessly. So my mother-in-law seems to be working herself to the bone. The dormitory for the workplace is inside a network lined with barbed wire, reminiscent of a prison, and the employees are blindfolded and transported to and from work in a van, so they are forced to work without even knowing where they are. She'll be free once she can pay off the debt. That is, if the day ever comes. Abby, who said this with a smile, is a dear friend of mine, but I hope she'll forgive me for feeling a little scared. Several weeks after my mother-in-law disappeared, David's overseas assignment ended and he returned home. When I told David what had happened, he only said, "There's nothing we can do about my mom. All we can do is wish her a long life from afar." It seems David never really liked his incomprehensible mother from when he was a child. He tolerated her because she was his mother, but it seemed that David had completely lost patience with his mother, who continued to suspect me, his wife, of infidelity. When I asked David if he had received the so-called evidence photos of my infidelity, he said, "Oh yeah," as if he had just remembered, and handed me a photo from his bag. "That's Abby, right? I have no idea why she would assume this was proof of infidelity. I actually had a huge fight with my mom over the phone. I told her I would cut ties if she kept suspecting you, Emma, but she just wouldn't listen, and it really annoyed me. But I thought this was a good picture, so I brought it home." True, my mother-in-law might have had a knack for photography. What a waste. The photo of Abby and me taken from behind by my mother-in-law, paired with the beautiful scenery, had a sense of style, as if it were a page from a photo album. It was kind of funny how Abby was playfully making a peace sign behind her back. It was just so Abby. We owe Abby a lot. We should pay her a proper visit sometime soon. Just make sure you don't sign any documents she might try to get you to sign. I'll never sign any document that Abby gives me. Chuckling together, David and I were finally able to live like a newlywed couple. We had no idea what happened to my mother-in-law afterwards, but she's probably still doing hard labor somewhere in the States. We felt like we could find out where she was if we asked Abby, but neither David or I had any desire to track down my mother-in-law. David and I continued to live happily together, and I gave birth to our first child. We are enjoying our blissful days.